Ford Motor Company has spent over 3 years developing this. This is the all-new 2024 Mustang Dark Horse. So the all-new Mustang Dark Horse starts at $52,000 MSRP for the truck.
Hopefully Mitchell's taking the time to mention that right now on tccustoms.com for Halloween we're doing 15% off all lighting. Not only do you get 15% off, but every dollar spent gets you a chance to win this awesome Super Duty right here. What do you want?
You messed me up. I called the Dark Horse a truck because of this truck was hauling in.
You weren't going to talk about the Halloween sale.
You've got a good point. And keep in mind, not only just the car parts that you buy on tccustoms.com enters you for that 7 times entries, but if you're not in the market for that kind of part, just pick out a shirt, a hat, or a hoodie, and it all gets you entered to win that truck. Now, can you get out of here so I can finish up this review?
Yes, sir.
So as I was saying before we got rudely interrupted, that this Mustang actually starts out at a base MSRP of $59,270, which is a great price point for a high-performance Mustang. And speaking of high-performance Mustang, this is the 7th generation Mustang. And with that being said, it's got a lot of things that are upgraded on this car compared to a normal Mustang GT, and I'm going to cover that in detail in this video. For instance, did you know that this is the very first brand new performance variant Ford has ever come out with on the Mustang in the last 21 years? And the first thing I want to talk about is the styling of the car itself. First thing you're going to notice on the front end is you've got a completely different bumper on the front end. And one of my favorite components is this aggressive styling located right here on the side. The Mustang GT doesn't have that, and the EcoBoost does not have that. It's a great looking upgrade to it. You'll also notice you've got a high performance, high flow grille in the front, and you've also got your dedicated Mustang badge up front. That's kind of standard stuff that you see on all of the Mustangs. What you don't see as standard on all of the Mustangs are the aggressive chin splitter that you've got down here. This chin splitter is so low to the ground that Ford Motor Company has the dealers install this before the customer takes delivery because it's too low to get it on and off the transportation truck. Now, the other thing that I want to point out to you, something that is very, very apparent, and that is going to be the color. This is a color that is unique to the Dark Horse, and it's called Blue Ember Metallic. What I love about this color is that it's giving off some serious Mistachrome Cobra vibes. I mean, look at this thing. In one angle, it looks like it's blue. In another angle, it almost looks like it's slightly brown. In another angle, it looks purple. In the South, we call it the flip-flop paint job. But it looks amazing. Now, this particular setup is also upfitted with the painted stripe package right here on the hood and also the roof as well. So what's cool about this whole stripe package is that there are no tape lines because they paint the car itself, they paint the stripes, and then they clear coat over all of it. And so I think it's a really cool option. It's just a $5,000 option. So it's very, very expensive to get these painted racing stripes. And I'm curious to know how many of these cars are going to come with the painted stripes versus no stripes or the tape stripes. I think it's a really, really cool setup. It does look amazing. Kind of continuing on with the whole theme and the look of the car itself, you can see you've got your functional heat extractors located right there towards the front of the hood. That is to allow that massive 5.0 to get all of that hot air out of the engine bay and basically allow you to go faster on the track as well. For my next trick, let me show you something. I've got the keys to the Dark Horse, and I'm going to put them in my pocket, but as I start walking up to the vehicle itself, the car is smart enough to know that I'm walking up. And what's going to start happening is the LED lights in the headlights are going to start to dance to almost welcome me into the vehicle itself. It's a really cool feature that is not just on the Mustang Dark Horse, it's also on the GT and on other vehicles. But I think it's amazing that Ford gives us that ability to greet that customer as they're greeting their brand new $79,000 Mustang. While we're talking about lights for a second, I do want to talk about these lights that are located right here on either side of the actual grille. I have no idea what these are for. And if you know, please leave us a comment down below because there looks like to be a small little LED on either side, but for the life of me, I cannot tell what those things are for. Continuing on with the design of the vehicle itself, I love these emblems. A fun fact for you, we've already talked about this is the very first performance variant of the Mustang in 21 years. This is the first time Ford has ever depicted a horse from the direct front end. I love the design of this horse skull is almost what it looks like. It really fits the Dark Horse theme instantly because it almost looks like a demonic skull, and it just kind of gives you that dark vibe. I mean, like, I know that's the name of the car, but man, I love this emblem. This is probably my favorite OEM emblem that Ford has ever made on any car. The design team who put that together, very, very well done. As far as the wheels and tires are concerned, since we're right here, let's talk about this. This is the handling pack car, which comes with upgraded wheels and tires. And as you can see, the tires themselves are massive. These are 305/30 ZR 19-inch tires in the front, and for the rear, they're 315/30 R19s. These tires are absolutely insanely massive because of that upgraded handling pack. And because we got the upgraded handling pack, you also pick up a couple of other things like this little, fender flare on the Mustang that is also dealer installed, as well as what we've already talked about, which is this massive spoiler up front, as well as a gurney flap that is going on that rear wing. In fact, let's go take a look at it. This is intended to be one of the most detailed reviews of the Mustang Dark Horse, but also not getting over people's head. My goal is to put the cookies on the bottom shelf for every single person that watches our videos. If you like cars, you're welcome here. And so I want to explain for a quick second what is going on with this rear wing. You'll notice you've got this huge step up to create more downforce in the back of the vehicle. That's great if you're going around fast corners. The gurney flap is this literal flap that's located right here that is pointed almost directly up. The idea there is to create even more downforce when you're going around those corners. And the best part is that gurney flap is very easy to remove if for some reason you want to do some straight line attacking on the track itself. So it's nice that Ford gives you that ability to just remove that gurney flap if you need a little bit less downforce. Coming back to the wheels and tires for a quick second, I realized we didn't talk about the wheels themselves and the options that are there. So these are 19-inch tall wheels in the front and the rear. What's crazy though is in the front they are 10.5 inches wide, and in the rear they're 11 inches wide for the wheel itself. And that is designed to make sure that you pick up the enough ability to have a really, really wide tire like this. And by the way, I also don't think I mentioned, these are Trofeo tires. Not only are they big, they're probably the best tires on the market for an application like this. Now, as a late availability option, Ford even gives you the ability to go with carbon fiber wheels from a company called Carbon Revolution. If that name sounds familiar, that's the same company that's producing the carbon fiber wheels on our Ford GT, as well as other vehicles like the GT500 carbon fiber track pack. The back of the Mustang Dark Horse is arguably one of my favorite components as far as the design is concerned. I absolutely love this hard line that Ford has given us on this rear end. Now, I will say that it does have Camaro vibes a little bit on the rear end, but that's not going to be an issue because GM's busy killing off all of their gas vehicles while Ford is coming out with some gnarly stuff just like this. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. But I want to talk about these taillights for a quick second. A fun fact for you is that Ford Motor Company took some of the people on their interior design team. You know, the people that handle this massive infotainment system are the same people that helped design these taillights. That's the reason they look so amazing even at night. You don't see any light bulbs inside of them. It's a great looking taillight, and that's because they've taken some of their top talent and repurposed them on the taillights. Down lower, you've got a really nice rear fascia that covers up the rest of the vehicle. Kind of a bummer that it's not all paint matched, but I'm sure that's probably for a good reason, but it does look good in my opinion. A couple of things I want to notice is that you've got these massive quad tip exhausts, and that's because the exhaust system is actually adjustable. You can adjust how loud you want the exhaust system on the Mustang Dark Horse. Now, here's a cool thing is that Ford also gives you a remote rev feature where if you hit a certain key fob on the button, it actually will remotely rev the vehicle. So if you're at Cars and Coffee, you don't even have to get in it to rev it up. The unfortunate thing is, or the fortunate thing, depending on how you look at it, this is a manual transmission, and that feature is only available on the automatic. Now let's take a look at the interior of the new Dark Horse. As the 7th generation Mustang goes, they've all gotten updates on the inside, and they're all updates that I think are very worthwhile. One of my favorite features of the entire interior for this car is this massive screen. It's a singular piece of glass that covers the entire instrument cluster and the Sync 4 system as well. And speaking of, this instrument cluster is 12.4 inches in diameter, and the Sync 4 system is 13.2 inches wide. And the crazy thing is this whole setup is controlled by the Unreal Engine. So Ford Motor Company has hired some of the best people in computer animation to take care of this. And let me show you what I mean. When you tap on the button for the Mustang mode, the My Mustang, look at how responsive this thing is to controlling the vehicle's, I don't know, maybe I'm just a nerd when it comes to stuff like this, but you can tell that this is the Unreal Engine that a lot of video games use to control their system. Because this is an angled piece of glass, it also kind of contours with the rest of the touch buttons located right here in the center console as well, like your pony mode and your traction control mode, as well as your hazards, because by law you have to have that, and also your start stop. But all of those buttons are rotated and kind of contoured to the driver. One thing I am a little bit concerned about though is what happens if this screen goes out? Do you also have to replace this screen over here? It's going to be very interesting to see what that looks like. A couple of other cool things that this system has is things like track apps, where you can do an acceleration timer, brake performance, lap time. You can do the drift brake. You can do launch control. There's a whole lot of things. Ford has focused this vehicle specifically around performance, and I absolutely love it. This system is the B&O, Bang & Olufsen Premium Audio System with 12 speakers. It sounds absolutely amazing. Next up, let's talk about the flat bottom steering wheel. This is a very aggressive steering wheel that I think looks amazing. Not only is it flat bottom, giving you that race inspired kind of vibes, but it's also got the indigo blue double stitch all the way through. It's got really nice bolsters for the hand. It feels fantastic. Probably one of my favorite steering wheels Ford has ever come out with on the Mustang. Speaking of the indigo blue stitching, let's take a look at these seats. These seats are amazing as well. At first you read it on paper, you're like, I don't know if I want some blue seats, but especially with this blue ember metallic exterior paint job, you've got the stitching, it all works together really, really well. But it's got the alcantara in the middle, it's got the leather bolsters on the side, just a really good looking seat. And for a big boy like yourself that's 6'3", I can actually fit in these seats versus some of these other Recaro seats that I just straight up don't fit in. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on the interior is going to be something that's also really related about the car's performance, and that is going to be this e-brake. So you basically, in a normal driving situation, you pull it up to put the e-brake on, you push it down to turn the e-brake off, and then you can just drive like normal. But because this is a Dark Horse, it comes standard with the drift brake as well. It's got dual functions. So now this, by the way, this whole setup was co-engineered with Vaughn Gittin Jr. And Vaughn Gittin Jr. was able to decide that how much clamp on that rear end. So that way, as you wanted to slide that car sideways, it is designed to drift the all-new 7th generation Mustang. And I think it's so cool that Ford is giving us a drift brake from the factory. Never in my life did I think I would see this. One of the biggest performance upgrades on the new Mustang is going to be the steering. They have a brand new steering rack in this thing where it's a 15:1 steering ratio, which is going to make it feel a lot tighter and a lot more aggressive on the turning. But if that is not kind of your thing, you still have the ability to adjust the sensitivity or the comfort mode of this electronic power assisted steering. So it's really, really nice. And it's a button right there on the steering wheel where you can turn it into steering comfort, steering sport, or just normal mode. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the transmission. Because this is the 6-speed transmission, and because it's a Dark Horse, it gets a Tremec 6-speed automatic transmission. And look at this awesome titanium shift ball. It looks amazing. This is an upgraded 6-speed manual transmission when compared to just the normal Mustang GT, but just know that before making your decision, do you want a Dark Horse or do you want a Mustang GT? This transmission does get a lot more beefed upness, if that's even a word. I'm from Alabama, leave me alone. I feel like we've spent a whole lot of time in this area of the vehicle, but there's a lot going on, especially around the brakes, and that is a big part of performance. The brakes on this car are absolutely massive. They're 390 millimeters in diameter up front, and they're 355 millimeters in the rear. And as you could probably guess, it's a 6-piston brake system up front and a 4-piston out back. These brakes on this thing are absolutely ridiculous. Also, if you did not know, all of the Dark Horses come standard with Magna Ride suspension system, which is basically an adjustable suspension system that can adjust the dampening of the shocks instantly. In fact, it actually analyzes the road up to 1,000 times per second to make sure that the dampers are doing exactly what it needs to for the intended purpose. let's take a look underneath the engine of this amazing car, because quite frankly, this is what makes the Dark Horse. And as far, you're kind of surprised that I knew exactly where that hood latch was. That's the first try. That is not a second take, I promise you. But a couple things about the Dark Horse. This is a 5.0 liter V8 naturally aspirated. Now, it's very similar to like the GT350, naturally aspirated, beefed up internals. The GT350 had a flat plane crank, which allowed it to rev to ridiculous numbers. This is not a flat plane crank, but it does have some significantly increased internals to allow for 500 horsepower and a whole lot of torque. Now, as far as what you're looking at here is you've got dual throttle bodies located on either side of the engine bay. And then what that does is it allows for air to flow in from either side of those massive grills, and it pumps cold air straight into the engine. There's a couple of reasons for that. My understanding is that it helps with emissions, believe it or not, but it also helps to increase that available horsepower at that 500 horsepower number that we talked about earlier. Now, another cool couple of things. Now, keep in mind this this car has not been detailed yet, and that's the reason you still have got some things. This is exactly how this engine has rolled off of the truck. But you'll notice you do have your strut tower brace located right here. The reason that's important is because it actually connects the struts between the two to stiffen the chassis. Because this is a handling pack and because this is a Dark Horse, you get things like that strut tower brace, but you also get a K-brace underneath it to help stiffen up that whole chassis. Because at the end of the day, this car is designed to go around a racetrack and not in a straight line. I mean, it can go in a straight line, but it's really designed for somewhere like Barber Motor Speedway, where it's taking turns at very, very high speed. Before we move any further from those intakes, I have to show you something pretty cool. So inside this intake box, you have got on the underside of it a list of every V8 engine that Ford has ever made for the Mustang. How stinking cool is that? Talk about an Easter egg. And if you don't know about it, you would never even think to look about it. Now, another cool thing is you've got a conical style air filter on either side. I can imagine what maybe a K&N air intake or a higher flow filter, especially since you've got dual throttle bodies and dual intakes, it's probably going to go a long way for extra horsepower without the need for a tune. As far as the engine, there is a whole lot more to talk about, and specifically things like cam profiling. This particular car has got a very unique cam profile. In fact, it's even got unique rods inside to make sure that this thing has got the most horsepower and torque possible. As I've already mentioned to you, it makes 500 horsepower. And if you think about it, it's a 5.0 liter V8. That's 100 horsepower per liter. Show me another car that is naturally aspirated that has 100 horsepower per liter. I'll wait to see your comments down below. And that is our video review of the new 2024 Mustang Dark Horse. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment down below and let me know if you think this is a win or a fail from Ford's end. I personally think it's a win, but I'm curious to see if you think I'm crazy. Don't forget to enter into the giveaway. This Super Duty, we are going to give it away. It is fully licensed, bonded. Pick out any shirts, hats, hoodies, or even car parts, because it all gets you entered to win, and it's 7 times entries, but for a very limited time. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel with the bell notification turned on so you don't miss a single video. Peace.